what's up everyone? It is Greg and Matt here, Project Unbroken. So by the end of this video, we're going to tell you how you can get off heroin without experiencing withdrawal. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment if you like this video. Also below, I'm going to put a link. We're now collecting all of our success stories. People who have followed our advice and have gotten off heroin successfully or gotten off methadone or Suboxone. We have those success stories below. The reason for that is to give you confidence in what you're doing, okay? To let you know that we didn't just do it, but people are following our advice and they're doing it as well, all right? So success is there. We want you to be part of our success stories. Make sure you check those out to get your confidence up, and so you know what we're telling you is actually working, all right? So heroin withdrawal. Now, we all know it's horrible, right? I mean, what reminds you the most of heroin withdrawal? Like what feelings?
Oh, man, I got the flu a couple weeks back, like a stomach virus flu, and it was just, you're achy, you're like cold sweats, lethargic, just like, there's just extreme uncomfortable feeling that's just, it's the worst.
For me, it was always like super high anxiety, and the biggest part is like you can't sleep, and then you're going through the restless legs, you're throwing up, you're shitting yourself, your mind's running, like your body hurts, you're depressed because your hormones are all low, or all those feel-good hormones are all very low because they're coming off the heroin. Like, it's hell.
It's hell.
You know, I mean, it's like the flu. You said the flu on steroids before, you know? So we all know how it feels. It's horrible. None of us want to experience it. So obviously we want to know, how can we get off heroin without experiencing that? And that's what we want to talk about today. So let's first talk about a lot of the problems we see, or a lot of the problems that we had when we tried to come off heroin. So I think the first one is people just trying to jump off with no plan.
Well, that's what we did. I think that's what everybody does. You find yourself in this unmanageable situation where you're like, all right, I'm running out of money. You know, maybe living in a way that doesn't align with my values. I'm stealing from people to try to get money for dope, and it just starts to build up, and you're like, enough is enough, let's get off this shit. And then you quickly run into that wall. And, you know, without a plan, you get there and you're like, all right, and I would say most people can't handle that. Like, it's just so, the withdrawal, especially the first time you experience it, hits you so hard. You're like, whatever I can do to get out of this feeling, I'll do, which is get in a bag, you know, getting back after it.
And the other problem I think that comes with that is they don't take care of all the other steps, right? Like they have friends around that are still using. It's like you jump off, you still have people that are using, like you're gonna have a lot of moments of weakness, and the more accessible the drug is, the easier you're gonna relapse. Right?
I just don't think, like you said, there's no plan and it's not really well thought through.
So one of the biggest problems we see is people just trying to jump off without any plan in place. Not saying you can't quit just jumping off without any maintenance drug. There is some people that do that, but we see the success rate is a lot lower, and even people that succeed doing that, they tend to go back to it a lot more. Like, you know, they'll be clean a couple months and they go back to it, or they'll be clean 6 months and they go back to it, and that's like really dangerous. Because then they go back, they take the same amount, and that's where a lot of overdoses occur. We know a ton of people who were doing great, then, you know, everyone thinks they're doing good, and all of a sudden the next day we wake up and they passed away because they went back and they used one time. So it's a big problem. People just trying to jump off, at least with no plan. So I think the other thing is maintenance drugs are huge for us. You know, we talk about them a lot. But people also approach that in the wrong way, I think, a lot, we see.
And everybody has their own opinion. I'm not, you know, how that stuff works. And we get a lot of people that are like, I'm going to try to do this cold turkey. And we tell them, follow up with us. And I don't think we've really heard anything back from any of those people.
If you want to do it cold turkey, I would say make sure you have everything else in place.
Everything else in place. But back to your point, I think people are maybe concerned that they're replacing one substance for another, which honestly you are.
Temporarily.
Temporarily.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, for Greg and I, well, actually it was a little bit different. I mean, for me, when I went down the maintenance route with Suboxone, I knew straight up that I wanted to be off of that at some point in time. I had a plan set in place with my doctor, and they you know, had you work with a doctor and a psychiatrist, and you guys came up with this blueprint of how you wanted to get off. And you know, I knew that there was going to be a light at the end of that tunnel, and it was cool for me because it was something to work towards. But I think a lot of people are concerned that they're just swapping addictions. And I'll go back to that, saying that you are, but to Greg's point, it's temporary. And it's also probably, well, it's definitely a lot safer than buying stuff off the street, especially nowadays with, you know, fentanyl and carfentanil and all these cutting agents. You don't really know what you're putting in your system, and you know that next bag could be your last.
Yeah, so that's a big problem, is people are like scared of maintenance programs for many different reasons. Like for me, I was really scared of it because everyone told me that I would be on methadone forever, right? And it so turns out it took me a little while to get off the methadone, but it wasn't that hard. You know, just because everyone says something doesn't mean it's necessarily true. That's something I had to learn the hard way. So I think a big thing that keeps people away from the maintenance programs is they're scared of them. They're like, well, I'm just replacing it. It's just as hard to get. Like, some people say, like, Suboxone's even harder to get off. Methadone's even, I'm like, no, it's not. No way.
Yeah, we do get comments now and then where people say, like, it took, like, Suboxone was, you know, it was harder than heroin to get off of. I mean, I did not experience that at all. And you know, that kind of maybe brings us into our next point of, you know, a problem that people run into, and that is their source of Suboxone or their source of methadone. You know, Greg was at a clinic. I was working with that doctor psychiatrist team, and we knew we had a steady supply. We had a counselor or a doctor that was working through this with us. So a lot of people are saying, like, oh, I'm getting, you know, Suboxone off the street, and like, this is my plan. What happens when that plan dries up or your plug for Suboxone disappears? Then, yeah, it's going to be a problem. Absolutely. And, you know, then you're going to have an issue. But if you have a steady supply from a reputable doctor or clinic, you can kind of just go at your own pace. And if you feel any, you know, sense of, I'm moving too fast off this taper, or it's too slow, you have a little bit of power in making those decisions. If you're like trying to get methadone or Suboxone off the street, that could dry up at any point, and then you're in trouble.
That's a very good point. I think a lot of the people that say they were harder to get off, they just don't have a plan in place. Like, you got to get on it and have a plan and have someone that's willing to work with you. Like for me, I came down a milligram a week pretty much for 2 years.
Yeah.
It took me 2 years. You took 1.5 years.
Yep.
Like, it's not the same thing if you treat it differently, right? Some people, I think, have commented and they're like, well, you can kind of just do the same thing on heroin. You can wean yourself down. That takes a special human being to do that. So, yeah, you know, if you can do that, more power to you, but that's very, very hard to do. The maintenance drug allows you to come down very slow, and when you're on the maintenance drug, you can take care of all the other steps. You can start getting your life together. You can start cutting out people. You can start getting used to living a life without getting high. And as you come down, you can add more positive things to your life. You can start hanging around more positive people, incorporate some diet, incorporate some exercise, and just add more positive things. Then by the time you get to the end of your taper, you have a lot of positive things in place. So on the other end, if you just jump right off, everything's the same.
Nothing's changed.
Right? You have negative people around you, you have negative habits, you've gotten rid of the vice, but what do you replace the time with? Like, you sit around with all that extra time that you used to do getting drugs and doing drugs, and you're like, shit, my life sucks.
Yeah,
like your hormones aren't up to, like, everything's still down, all the feel-good hormones are still down, so nothing's going to work. When you do a slow taper on a maintenance drug, when you do it the correct way, it allows you to get everything in place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we kind of just even back this up for a second, and, you know, what we're trying to explain in this video is how you can go from, I'm stuck in this terrible situation with heroin, I don't want to withdraw, like, what should I do now? My first step would be to go find a reputable clinic or doctor. I would prefer methadone only, or I'm sorry, Suboxone only because that's what I've experienced with. Everybody's different, but get into some conversation with somebody that can steer you down the right path with a maintenance program. That's, for me, step one.
Yeah, definitely. And like, we're pushing people towards maintenance programs because we've seen it work for so many people. I mean, look at the success stories. I know my success from it. I think, again, the big problem is people want to jump off right now. Like, and I understand that. Like, I wanted to get off right then. Like, I was sick of it. That's why I went on methadone. Like, I was just so sick of it, and I had no other choice. And at that time, I thought I was just going to be on methadone forever. That was the word. You know, right. Like, you're just going to take it forever. And I kind of accepted it. But then things progressed. I started, getting some stuff together in my life. I had some things happen. I found out I had a son on the way. I started getting my business together. A little more positive stuff started happening. So I was like, you know what? I started thinking different. Like, it changed my mind. And I was like, I can do this. Let me just try to take it slow and see what happens.
And I would argue that methadone for you and Suboxone for me opened that door for you to start thinking differently.
Right.
Because if we had the stress of going to the block, trying to find bags, trying to find money, we wouldn't have that wiggle room to be like, maybe I can do something better with my life. I mean, you guys know any addiction, heroin, pills, whatever, especially with substance abuse, consumes your mind. Like, there's not time to think about the bigger picture, really. Like, you're concerned day to day with, like, how am I going to catch this fix? When you get Suboxone or methadone in there, you don't have to worry so much about finding money, finding bags, finding the plug, where he's at, he's late, then 4 hours of your day are gone. Now you have some time to, start putting a career together, possibly start paying more attention to your health, your wellness, your family, the things that are going to really improve your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know most people, they're like, but I don't want to just do a replace. Not a replacement. I mean, it is a replacement, but it's not the same thing.
No.
And a lot of people are also like, well, I want to get off now. And I understand that, but the thing is, if you've tried to get off and you've jumped off, it's probably not for you. There is, I think, a small amount of people that can maybe jump off and make it work, but for most people, I think you need to have that time away from everything. You need to have those changes in your life before it actually works.
And I mean, just if that's you out there, you got to give yourself a little bit of tough love and realize, like, you spent a long time getting yourself into this shitstorm.
Exactly.
Be patient with yourself. I mean, like, it was a long way to get in to where you're at. You got to give yourself a little bit of time to get out and to get out smart.
Yeah.
Again, I was in no rush. I didn't care. I was like, whatever. If it's a year or 2 years or whatever it is, like, I'll get to that at some point, and in the meantime, I can start improving other areas of my life.
And it's much better than heroin. Like, you're not spending that time all day running around, meeting drug dealers, trying to find money. Like, you just take you start living a normal life. Like, you got to take a medicine to feel right, but like, you have all that spare time that you spend getting drugs and doing all that drug life type stuff to start making positive changes.
Get you out of that day-to-day cycle, right? That you're just surrounding yourself in pretty poor circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't help you make good decisions when you're, again, trying to find money and scrambling and dealing with your plug. Like, it's just not good.
And like, as humans, like, we all want that quick fix, right? Especially as drug addicts. Like, we're so used to that heroin being our quick fix or opiates being our quick fix. You gotta realize, like, it doesn't work that way.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, there's no quick fix for a heroin addiction. There's no quick fix to get out of it. We got ourselves into this, now we got to work ourselves out of it.
But it doesn't have to be painful.
It doesn't.
It really does not have to be painful. If you give yourself that patience and get the plan together and start chipping away at it, again, I didn't feel any of those withdrawal symptoms like I did when I would dive right in and be like, all right, cold turkey, or I'm going to try to take a couple Xanax or whatever to get it. That always sucked, and then you get sick, and it's just a matter of time, at least for us, where we're back on. But with the maintenance program, it was just such a structured plan, and I knew I wasn't going to get sick, I knew it wasn't going to hurt, and I could just start putting things in place that made my life easier all around.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. So yeah, I mean, with heroin withdrawal, the way to avoid it, in our experience, is to get on a maintenance drug and then get things together with your life and then slowly come down. Again, Matt experienced minor anxiety coming off the Suboxone. I experienced a little more withdrawal. I had a little bit of anxiety, a little depression, like I didn't feel great, and I couldn't sleep. Those were really my main things. But look what I could have been experiencing. I could have been stuck to the bed, restless legs, throwing up, shitting myself. Like, I came out of it, honestly, I was like, man, like, I got away with murder. Like, this isn't that bad,
and the anxiety that I felt, and maybe some of what you felt, was more of like, am I going to freak out? Yeah. Am I going to start withdrawal? Like, it was just, you're almost waiting for that other shoe to drop, and for me, it just didn't. And then, it wasn't long before that anxiety went away, and I was like, all right, like, I feel okay. Yeah. And it kind of just went from there.
Yeah, so I mean, that kind of covers heroin withdrawal, how to get out of a heroin addiction, or really any opiate addiction, without experiencing the pain. Neither of us really went through much pain. little bit of anxiety, a little bit of worry, but we didn't go through the super pain where it was like unmanageable. Everything was very manageable, and we've also had people follow our advice and come out the same way. So it's not just us, and we did ours separately. Like, we weren't speaking at the time, so we had to separate from each other to quit, which is one of the big steps you got to do. So make sure you guys follow this advice. You know, if you want to just hop off right away, if you're going to try that, make sure you have everything else in place. Make sure you've gotten rid of everyone that uses. Make sure you have some positive habits in your life, and you know, see how it goes for you.
Yeah, but check out that link below, guys. Check out those success stories, and hopefully you can add yours to that list here in the near future.
All right, so make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Let us know if you have any questions or like any more topics. See y'all soon.